So my name is MYISHA Driver, actually Woods now. I always, I'm going to have to acclimate to including my married name, but I am a psychologist and licensed marriage and family therapist. I currently hold a position at Children's Hospital, where I did my formal doctoral training. I actually worked in community mental health for about 15 years as a licensed marriage and family therapist before pursuing that additional degree and training. I am a native of Compton, California, so your neighboring city is where I grew up, and went to St. Albert, and then, went to school in Downey for high school, but so Compton is where my roots are. And I have lots of family and friends who are long-term Carson residents. So I definitely have spent a lot of time in your city as well. Let's see. So today, I would really, ask that, this is meant to be more of a conversation than a lecture. I'm here to share with you some resources and some things that I know and have learned, and hopefully we can create some space to make some connections, and for you all to share some things with one another and with me as well. So I'll go ahead and get started. And let's see, I know this I might have to take it off. So if you are disturbed by, maybe I should take this view off. I have a hard time just listening and looking at myself. So I try to use the panel view, but sometimes I know that it obstructs the screen. So maybe I'll take it off because I think it might be obstructing the PowerPoint. Okay, so today again is what I understand the 7th annual. So I mean, this is awesome to have a space to really talk about women's issues. And what I understand of this year is that the theme is that it's all about me. And I really love that. But I also, from my own personal and professional experience, do understand that that's easier said than done, right? It's all about me is necessary and important for us to care for and love and do all the jobs that we have. We do need to worry about ourselves and make it about ourselves first and foremost. But I am very aware of how difficult that can be. So, it also brings to mind, like, there really has to be a need for us to declare it's all about me, right? It must really be hard to do, because anytime you have to openly declare something, it means that it's definitely not the easiest thing to do. So I want us to, kind of, as we come into this space together, I want us to think about all the hats that you wear all day, like all the roles you have, the roles as, maybe a mother, a child, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a niece, whatever your role is, a grandparent, a sibling, an employee, a committee chair, a sorority sister, a neighbor, an entrepreneur, an employer, all of the hats. Just take a quick assessment of all of the roles that you play in the multiple aspects of your life, and think about what that number is. And if you're willing, you could put it in the chat. So what is that magic number, or how many roles do you have in your kind of daily living? So in these roles, we are caring for lots of people, right? So when you think about all the roles you play, and then think about all of the people who are your colleagues and your family and friends and social networks and business networks. So think about all of the people who are in some way dependent upon you for one thing or another, who are collaborating with you, who rely on you in some way, shape, or form. And then you think about what that number is, right? So I'm imagining these numbers are growing and growing and growing. So then just think about this is, although we have multiple roles, we are not actors in these roles, right? We are living out the roles and the responsibilities on a daily basis. And, you know, unlike actors who, you know, play a role and who can, you know, go deep into a character and then the director yells cut and then that part is over. I don't imagine that in your day-to-day life, there's a, you know, cut, right? They just continue into, you know, the evening and the day. So this is why this conversation about care and wellness, I think is requires and really deserves some space. So this is a quote from our former First Lady, Michelle Obama, and it says, "We need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do lists." So think about your to-do list for today, tomorrow. I'm not quite sure, but, you know, I'm wondering where, you know, your self-care or something for yourself or wellness kind of falls on that list. Again, speaking from, you know, my own experience, you know, and what I know is just even little things like, so this morning, of course, anytime for me, I have a presentation or anything, you know, formal to do, there's always that, you know, little bit of angst to get it going and do things and look at it one more time and, you know, make sure I'm, you know, in the right place and have the right link and all of those things. And in the midst of that, I realized, hey, I haven't eaten. I haven't had my shake. I try to have a shake in the morning. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just skip it and I'll just do it after. You know, I need to do this. And then in a moment, I was like, I mean, you kind of need to, you know, nourish yourself just a little bit so that you can maybe think a little more clearly, so that maybe you can regulate yourself so that you're not as anxious, and being anxious and hungry at the same time typically don't go well. So just thinking about where you are and where you are on your own priority list. So for this hour, this time that we have together, again, hopefully having this conversation about the challenges as we, you know, attempt to balance multiple roles. So women and the people who care about women and men and, you know, just everyone. How are we balancing these things and all of these obligations? And the biggest elephant in the room is that we are all attending this conference virtually because we are still, and I say still because it feels like it's been forever, in the midst of a global pandemic. So, you know, all of the things that we've had to learn and adapt and adjust. So definitely want to acknowledge and have a conversation about that. I also want to create some space for, you know, if there's time for questions and discussions and about all these adaptations that we have made, and also the impact of those things on us as individuals, on our community, on our children. I was talking to the director of a preschool yesterday, and she was commenting about how challenging it has been to reopen for the children and their parents, because, you know, these are very young children, and thinking about a lot of them have not left home. So there are 3-year-olds who in the last year and a half have been at home. So, you know, you take a year and a half from a 3-year-old, and then that made them an infant when the pandemic started. And where were they really going as an infant anyway? Just 3-year-olds who really had never experienced a playground. And the fear and the anxiety related to not only the separation, but all of these experiences that are very new, that they hadn't had because we've been in this pandemic. So I know you all know, I don't have to tell you about it. And then also, we're just going to create a little bit of space to, you know, think about ourselves, think about our plans, and do some kind of proactive planning to support our own wellness and resilience. And I think that, again, this idea of putting ourselves higher on the priority list also means creating space. Because when I talk to people about, you know, self-care and wellness, and really prioritizing those things, one of the things that comes up a lot is time. We are juggling, we are managing, we are multitasking. And so sometimes the time and space becomes an issue. So now that you have carved out this time together with us today, we're gonna, you know, use it and maybe do some things that you wouldn't necessarily have time to do if you were not in this space today. And I always like to ask at this point, if there was anything, any burning desire, anything that you came here as far as when you decided to attend this particular workshop, that you said, I want to go into this place and space and hopefully hear, learn, discuss A, B, or C. So if you have any of those desires or expectations, please put those in the chat so I can make sure to at least touch on them or provide you some additional resources outside of this space if it's something that we are not going to kind of touch on here in our time together. So we know that the things that we've experienced over the past year, as it relates to lots of things, especially our mental health, there's this quote that says it's been an incubator for trauma, stress, adjustment, and anxiety. And so we know all of those things have come with, you know, life in general, but in addition to kind of, I feel like the pandemic kind of ripped a Band-Aid off of, especially with our systems, off of those things. And we realized how vulnerable a lot of our systems really are. So in addition to our daily lives, our daily responsibilities, in this space, we are all connected globally, not just because of the technology that we have, where we are getting, you know, videos and news bites from around the world related to struggles and tragedies of others. But, you know, a lot of us are also personally connected to people who, you know, may live thousands of miles away. And so as we attend to our personal kind of geographical, you know, circle of or geographical life in one space, a lot of us also spend a lot of our, thoughts and worries and wonderings and celebrations with our family and friends across the planet, who again are also dealing with both trials, challenges, and triumphs. So I'd like to take a second to do now is just to take a minute to do a little stress check. Kind of, where are you? Today, is your stress, first of all, do you have any stress today? Or did you kind of wake up like, yay, it's, Friday, and, I have this conference on my calendar, so I can kind of, relax and take some things in. Kind of, where are you generally in your stress? And then when you think about that, is this stress related to just kind of day-to-day hassles? Like, this morning I was trying to get, my iPad to boot up and it wouldn't. And, then I get frustrated with this technology. And I'm like, oh, or is your stress related to some major life changes or challenges? Sometimes, great things can be challenges too. You bought a new house in the midst of a pandemic. You are attempting to remodel or do some work on your house, or, extend your family, grow your family. And those things are exciting, but can also, those life changes can bring on additional stress. Are there other life circumstances, health, business, all of those things? So just kind of do a little self-check and identify where your stress is coming from today, and just keep note of that as we talk a little bit more. So we know that, again, one of the major things that has, been a stressor to everyone at the same time, which has made it a unique experience, meaning that in our life, a lot of times when we have stressors of some sort, we may be personally going through that, but we can turn to trusted sources, family, friends, professional colleagues who may have experienced that in the past and be beyond it, or who can, are themselves, not in that same space. Well, in the past year and a half, we all kind of met the same challenges all at the same time. And so our sources of support who, in the past may have had some insight where they could look back and tell us, well, in my experience, this happened, that happened, and I kind of found my way by doing A, B, and C. Well, with this, we didn't necessarily have the benefit of that with our immediate family and friends. So one thing we know is that it has definitely had an economic impact on individuals, communities, businesses. We know it has a disproportionate impact on women, on people of color, economically for women. I think a lot of the data shows is that a lot of women really kind of were out of employment for some reason or another, either through layoffs, but a lot of women chose to chose to not return, or chose to stay focused on the home because of the responsibilities that came with Zoom school and all those things. Just made it too challenging to manage all of it at one time. Our family life, our schoolwork, even now, I think as far as employment, women's unemployment is about, I think it's higher, 6.5% higher than men at this point. And so I think a lot of those initial stressors continue, right, a year and a half later. We know that it's impacted our social networks, our ability to commune with one another, our spirituality. A lot of things are changing, but again, we still are in this place and space where it has definitely changed the way that we typically operated. It has definitely had an impact on mental health of all of us, of adults, of children, of all of us. Really has been impacted by this pandemic and the social isolation that it basically caused in a necessary way. But yes, so what we know about mental health is that there definitely has been an increase in both anxiety and depression, especially during that initial shutdown. There is an increased risk for domestic violence. And we know that there were people who were in DV situations before the pandemic began that made it even more dangerous because of that initial shutdown. We know that there is increased parental stress due to all of the shift and changes and responsibilities. Again, we know that our children are, for the most part, back in school. That doesn't mean that it's not any less stressful on parents, educators, and the children themselves, right? All of the protocols and the testing. And of course, all of these things are necessary to keep children and ourselves and our educators safe, but it does not come without some stress, right? You get a call, your child has been exposed, they're in the isolation tent, can you come and get them? What are the protocols? When can they go back to school if they've been exposed? So we know that it definitely continues to impact our mental health. And so as we think about our stress and really want to think about what stress does to our body, we think about, and this is thinking about stress and types of stress and types of stress responses, right? So there can be a positive stress response, meaning that anytime there's a new challenge, again, I'll use myself as an example. This morning there's a little bit of angst and excitement about a presentation such as this. So, my cortisol levels go up a little bit, and I get a little more energy from that boost. And just like when you kind of ramp yourself up to take a test, or your first day of work, or your child's first day of school, anything like that, so there's a little bit of stress, and that is considered positive stress, right? There's a little bit to kind of get us going. It's a normative part of life. And then we, manage through, we accomplish the task, move through the task, and then our bodies, kind of go back into kind of this homeostasis. And then there's this idea of tolerable stress response, meaning these things are a little lengthier in nature. Our stress response system kicks in and it's elevated for a little bit longer, meaning things like the death of a family member or the loss of something very precious to us. What happens in, when there's a natural, disaster, those kind of things. We're able to use our resources, our support systems, things we have in place to kind of move us through that moment. And even though our physiological response may stay somewhat elevated for a slightly bit longer, we are able to, again, kind of use our resources to kind of come back into more of a homeostasis kind of place. And then there's this idea of toxic stress and a toxic stress response. And I know if you're on the internet at all, people throw around the word, it's toxic, and there's no, I don't want to be dismissive of it, but toxic stress and a toxic response really is kind of this idea of it being chronic. This idea that our stress response system is activated either repeatedly or and kind of stays elevated over time. So these are things that happen, when children are exposed to violence, domestic violence, when we are victims of domestic violence, when we are abused, neglected, when we are interacting or having engaged with others who may have a substance use and abuse challenges. So this idea where our physiological stress response stays activated or is repeatedly activated over and over and over again. And so we're kind of stay at this level, which increases our cortisol levels and other stress hormones, which can negatively impact our brain and our behavior function. We talk about energy and memory and attention span, and all of those things over time become impacted by this chronic kind of toxic stress. And in turn, what stress does to not only our behavior and our brain, but then, our health, right? So we really want to do our best to look out for these things, seek help when we need them, and also really support ourselves and others. And so in thinking about, how are we moving beyond some of these moments? So how are we moving beyond things that are more normative stress, and this idea of, kind of toxic stress is over here on the extreme. But one of the things that really is, kind of the wonders of our capacity as humans is this idea of resilience, and understanding that resilience isn't magic. It isn't something that some people have and some people don't. It is our kind of innate adaptive process, right? Things come up, things aren't always the way they should be or we want them to be. And so we have this capacity for growth, right? This adapt to the current circumstance and grow and learn based on our experience moving through. So with resilience, if appropriate systems and relationships are in place, then the expectation is for both children and adults to manage through this situation, whatever it is. What happens is that resilience, when there's lots of risk and there are not those relationships and there are not those safety nets, then risks our capacity for resilience can be inhibited because of the lack of those things. And so resilience, just like anything else, is like a muscle that you build, which is why when you are engaging with younger people and people younger than you, and even people who are less experienced than you in whatever industry you're in, that nurturing and support that you provide them is important to build their resilience in that way. But thinking about ourselves and overall kind of building resilience really is about our connections to other people, other entities of support. It is about the way we think about things. Are we thinking about things in a healthy, expecting goodness, expecting to move through, expecting to be successful, understanding that, my grandma used to say, this too shall pass. It's about our wellness, and we'll talk a little bit more about wellness and what that, kind of looks like and means. It's not just like, a yoga mat and, a cup of coffee on a leisure day, because that really doesn't always work for everyone. And this idea of how are we making meaning of what is happening to us, around us, and to the people we care about. So when we're talking about building resilience, we're constantly thinking about kind of these building blocks, like in general, how connected am I to other people? How do I think about the world? What are my core values about and belief systems that can really help shape the way I think about myself and the world around me. All right, so when I think about this idea of personal, resilience and really thinking about it ahead of time, and there's this kind of plan. So this is when I spoke about like just taking a minute. So when you think about your own resilience, thinking about a time when you demonstrated resilience, whatever the circumstances were, and then think about who did you go to? Who were those safe, supportive, affirming people in your life? Think about what coping strategies did you use? Are you a songwriter? Are you a creative person who likes to paint? Are you a writer who likes to journal? Are you someone who, likes to, talk it out with other people? Are you someone who likes to meditate? Does prayer help you? What coping strategies did you use specifically? And then think about words of wisdom. Maybe something that, someone said to you a long time ago, or something. Like for me, it's always something my mom or my grandmother would say to me. And so their words sometimes echo in my head. And, they make me smile and make me, laugh sometimes at the same time. Are there songs, we can all turn on the radio and remember when. A song can really take you back to a time, place in your life. And sometimes when we are moving through things, certain things really just resonate with us. And then this idea of solution-focused behaviors. So, what were those things that helped me focus on, okay, this in this moment is the issue. And this is kind of, something that I'm going to do to address this particular issue. And then, thinking about what we learned from our culture, what healing practices or rituals were really helpful. What were those things we learned how to do for ourselves that were healing and nurturing, and those practices that, we may have to reach back to think about, to look at, to re-engage in. We're really bringing forth all of those aspects. So hopefully, as I was talking, you were able to, just take mental note in your mind about these things, and think about how you can keep these these things in practice, right? This idea of being intentional. If I know that these things are helpful to me, how do I intentionally incorporate these things into my life? So this is a quote from Maya Angelou, and it says, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." So I think now would be a good time. For me personally, I always like to ask the audience, always take a pause and reflect. And if there's any feedback in this moment about timing, pace, um, uh, clarity, I like to give a moment for people to provide that now before moving on. All right.
Dr. Driver, we have Dr. Lori Arnold with her hand up.
Yes, Dr. Arnold.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I can't see you because I can't see anyone, but hello, Dr. Arnold.
Just wanted to let you know that, when we take time and when we're driving and we hear that song, our favorite song that comes on the radio, and it takes us back to a place and time, it gives us a time to pause.
Mm-hmm.
And not only pause for the cause, but just to pause, and reflecting how precious life is.
Mm-hmm.
And the memories that you shared with your family or your friends or whatever that song means to you, how
Mm-hmm.
it just illuminates every part of your body, your soul,
Mm-hmm.
and your spirit. And it's just can be emotionally profound,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And but at the same token, just giving thanks that, oh wow, I made it through whatever I was going through,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm giving thanks for just having a good day, just to hear that song again.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's just good to reflect on even the smallest things in life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that comment. I absolutely agree. It's that, and the vocabulary now, this idea of mindfulness, and it's everywhere. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's exactly the idea of it. It means just slowing down enough to take in the moment that you're actually in. And it's more difficult to do with the pace of the world. Like we have to, the world requires us to move at a specific pace these days. Even for me, thinking about the idea of the expectation of multitasking, especially now that most things are electronic and virtual. So this idea that a lot of us are sitting here in this conference together, but I can tell you that I'm not gonna gamble, but I could bet that some people answer 3 emails, 5 text messages, um, you know, sent a document to someone, all in this same space. Because the expectation is that because these things can reach us immediately, that we are immediately going to respond, right? And some things require it and some things don't. It's like you're here, people know you're at work, but your children are texting you, "Mom, can I have an ice cream out the freezer?" Just whatever it is. Sometimes it's, oh my goodness, other things, are emergencies. But just thinking about the intentional idea of really thinking about where you are in this moment, in this space right now, and staying right here versus, okay, after this, I have a 12 o'clock meeting, then, at 1 o'clock, okay, so then I might eat between 12:30 and 12:45. And I think I had some lunch meat in there. I mean, just all of that. And so the sitting and enjoying and reflecting, and the gratitude, kind of sitting in the moment is definitely important. And today at the end, we're just going to practice like just a 1 minute mindfulness, just to transition us through the next activity. So definitely thank you for that comment. All right. So that kind of leads us into kind of the next piece of our discussion about what are we doing for ourselves? What are we doing to care for ourselves and make it all about us, right? I think there was I think maybe it was Issa Rae or someone. She was like, it's my season, or I just, it's my season. It's all about me. So moving on this theme of it's all about me, thinking about how are we caring for ourselves? Where are we putting our needs on the priority list, right? With our physical, emotional, social, and spiritual selves, right? Thinking about ourselves as whole and not, just fragmented, taking care of one piece and not the other. So there's this, the concept of wellness is, connected to resilience, but a little different from resilience. So resilience is this adaptable part of ourselves, right? This innate capacity to adapt and kind of meet the challenge that is presented to us. This idea of wellness is more about kind of what am I doing as part of my daily self, not to address illness, but to be well, right? So this isn't about what am I doing to address, any illness or discomfort, but what am I intentionally doing to be and maintain a certain level of wellness. So wellness is conscious and self-directed, right? So it is this intentional, conscious, I am being very focused on this, and it is directed from the inside out as to what I need and how I need to do this. It evolves, right? Just like our identities, different identities are more salient at different times in our lives. And so what we need and what we do to support our own wellness is dynamic and changing as well. Let's see. Again, it's wellness is multidimensional. So again, not just thinking about one aspect of our lives, but different aspects, our mind, body, soul, socially, our, emotional aspects, everything. And we're looking at ourselves in a holistic way. Again, not just pieces, but like as the whole, as me, as this whole human. How am I taking care of myself, lifestyle wise? And then wellness is positive and affirming. So wellness is not this competitive comparison. If you're in a space where you're not feeling, quite right because, you're comparing yourself to other, then that's not the space. Wellness is positive and affirming. So I know a lot of people, their calendars and daily reminders and daily affirmations. So these things that, feed our spirit. Just like for today, it is enough to do my best. And just being able to sit and put a period on that. And I know sometimes, this can be challenging, but definitely want us to remember it. Emotional wellness. So these are a few emotional wellness strategies that could be helpful. We want to, brighten our outlook on life, on the world, on our circumstances. Being able to hold on to positive emotions. As humans, a lot of times we focus on the negative. So if you get 10 compliments about, your work, and one person is critical or has some level of criticism, a lot of times we will hold on to that negative piece of feedback and not really sit with and hold on to the 10 positive pieces of feedback we got. Practice gratitude. Dr. Arnold mentioned being grateful. So daily acts of gratitude, we can practice that with ourselves, in groups. If you are a leader of in any place or space, gratitude activities really help support the people in the work. Exploring our beliefs and values in a way that helps us make meaning of the world. How much have you thought about what your core values are and why you have those values and what's important to you? Doing things to reduce our stress, including movement, activity. Again, these really building social connections, but really, the ones that we have, how much time and energy are we putting into those relationships that really mean a lot to us? This idea of practicing mindfulness. Our sleep is really important. If you are getting poor quality sleep, it is very difficult to be mindful and feel gratitude and have a positive attitude throughout the day. So different things like, having good sleep hygiene, avoiding, your technology at the very end of your day, coping, right? Coping with loss of lots of things, not just people, but relationships, of opportunities, coping with them and not just moving past, right? So how are we coping versus pushing it down and not thinking about it and really not dealing with it? So being patient with ourselves. I saw a graphic. It was like I guess it was a post, but the graphic was that loss, it had like a marble in a jar, and the marble was really big in that jar, representing the marble representing the loss. And over time, the jar got bigger. So it's not that the loss doesn't feel like a loss, but like we grow and have capacity for more around the loss. So just thinking of things in that nature. Again, it's said over and over again, which is so important to me, the idea of relationships and strengthening those things, asking for help. So guilty. This one is really hard for me. But asking for help. People, a lot of the research shows that people who kind of are, looked at as having lots of being resilient and overcoming and being well are not afraid to ask for help. They ask for help for people, from organizations, from places that are safe and affirming. Learn new things, take a class, if you have something you're interested in, take a class related to that thing, or find a group, even if it's a virtual group, who are into what you're into. Again, this idea of mindfulness, and we'll have an opportunity. There are lots of free apps about just taking a moment. We get to do that soon. Taking a moment, paying attention to our body, where our body is, what our body is telling us. And this all takes practice. I know for me, from a cultural standpoint, I was taught to push through. And there's nothing wrong with that, but push through with the details of resting your body, asking for help, using your social connections, strengthening your relationships, caring for yourself, or when rest is needed, having a boundary and being able to set that boundary in a loving way. I can't do that for you today, right? Tomorrow, I can do A, B, and C. So really thinking about and taking what we've learned, but also examining what we've learned and taking those pieces that are really helpful. So it is 11:17. I want to just take a quick minute to do a quick mindfulness 1 minute activity, and then we'll have time for more questions after, because I think we're going to 11:20 if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go to this little 1 minute mindfulness visual. All right. So this is just a 1 minute, and it gives some instructions in the beginning. It's a mindfulness minute. It says, breathe deeply, slowly, and quietly. Close your eyes or look at the water. And there was our mindfulness minute. All right. So I'm definitely, am grateful for the time we've had together. I definitely would like to hear people's thoughts, people's questions, maybe something you want to reflect on that was talked about today. This last slide has some resources. I checked out the City of Carson's website, and in your kind of fall catalog, I'm not sure if I'm using the right vernacular, but I think it was, in there, maybe page 26 or 27, they had a whole page of additional mental health and emotional health resources that are available to residents through other agencies, but here are a couple here. The NIH has an emotional wellness toolkit that's available. There's the National Wellness Institute has a lot of things. Just for caution, some things on this website are for cost, but the NIH stuff is all free. The LA County Department of Mental Health, they have lots of resources if you need access to mental health. I think now you can press 1 for that. If you press 2, there's a warm line where you can just talk to someone, like a peer conversation. And then I think if you press 3, there's veteran services. It's a crisis text line, and then a suicide prevention line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing so I could see people's pictures and or faces. Yeah.
Dr. Driver, this is Mayor Holmes. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yes, I just want to pop in. I'm on my way to meet a news channel about this odor that's in Carson, but I just want to thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule to come and speak with our ladies. This is our 2nd virtual women's conference, our 7th annual, and we will be back live next year. But just wanted to drop in and say thank you to all the staff and to all our participants and the ladies for joining you this morning. I know you're busy, and I just appreciate you taking your time, but I do have to pop back out again.
All right. I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, ladies.
Bye-bye. All right. So now is a perfect time if you have any comments, feedback, thoughts. I'd love to hear what people thought about this idea of kind of making a plan for resilience and then wellness. And feel free to put that in the chat too. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything.
This is Nancy. I just wanted to say that mindful minute is something that I know I should be doing more often. And the sad thing is sometimes I don't even take 60 seconds out of my time to take that moment for my own well-being. And so I appreciate it. Thank you for the reminder. I even have that available on my watch, and I still ignore it and don't use it. So thank you for the reminder that we need to do that more often for our own well-being.
All right. Thank you so much for that comment, right? Because I think the barrier that I know I kind of is like time. When am I going to do that? When am I going to, I have this, and this. And so sometimes just this slowing down in like 60 seconds, can I give myself 60 seconds? And it is definitely easier said than done. Any ideas for one another or any conversation even about barriers? Because I know that anytime it's like, oh, I could do this. And in the past when I've attended things like this, and then you start feeling like, oh, I should, and then you start feeling guilty. So this isn't about, the shoulds and coulds. It's about, how do we make more space? Right. And any groups in the city? I think I live in Inglewood now, and things like, I think there's an adult double Dutch group that has started to kind of pick up some steam. And I know that there was a group across the country that kind of got some attention. And so someone started a group here in Inglewood. So those things that, wow, I really enjoyed this as a child. It really brought me joy. And now as an adult, it's a great way to, bring some of those things together. So feel free. I know you probably have additional workshops, but I feel like spaces like this are also a great space to share those community-based resources with one another.
Thank you so much, Dr. Driver. I'd like to remind everyone in the room that at this time, we're a few minutes behind, but that's okay. If we go back to the main link in the main room, we're going to have musical entertainment right now with Donald Hayes. So I appreciate everyone's participation in today's meeting. Have a great day, and thank you, Dr. Driver.
That was wonderful. Great music. Awesome. Thank you all for your time and attention.